We're shipping Easter gifts with a rapid-fire round of questions. Ready?
Yes, my gift. Can you pack it?
Yep.
Ship it?
Yes.
Guarantee it?
Of course.
Oh, send gift baskets?
For sure.
Protect electronics? Dog-proof it? Return it if they hate it?
Yes, no, and yeah.
Are you the UPS store?
Hey, we have a winner!
Visit theupsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Visit a store today.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Hi, it's Anne. You've probably read about the Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, who was accidentally added to a government group chat in Signal. I had the opportunity to interview Jeff at the New Orleans Book Festival the week the story broke. We wound up talking about autocracy, democracy, freedom, resistance, as well as the absurd situation of the Signal chat. And so we thought fans of the Autocracy in America podcast might appreciate hearing our conversation too. So here you go. Thanks for listening.
Well, that's embarrassing.
So this is the second standing ovation I've witnessed this week for Jeffrey Goldberg. So one more time. So thank you all so much for coming. It's a real pleasure to be in this enormous packed room full of people who read books. So thank you so much for coming and contributing to the festival and listening to us talk about things that happen in real life as opposed to things that happen in culture wars far away. I'm in the unusual position of interviewing my editor, so you'll forgive me if I make mistakes. It's a first time. There's been some news over the last week, and I thought we might focus on that. I wanted to start with my own experience. So I was at the Atlantic offices on Tuesday. So if you remember, I won't recount to you the content of Jeff's story that was printed on Monday, because I think if you're here, you probably know what it was in it. But on Tuesday, there was an interesting decision to be made. So the story was published. As you know, Jeff was put on a Signal chat of the leading members of the Trump administration. And then they reacted to the chat. Then they began denying it. They said it was a hoax. And I walked in on Tuesday morning, and there was a decision to be made about what to do next. And Jeff had printed out the copies of the screenshots from the chat and was looking at them. And what were you thinking?
Let's just go off the record for a minute. Just between us. Well, I was thinking, I wish I weren't in this position because I didn't want, obviously we made a decision early before the first story that we weren't going to publish certain texts because I felt that they were too sensitive from a national security perspective to publish, obviously, information about specific operations. So I felt like I was being put into a kind of a box, but I didn't want to be put into a box, so I felt like we had to get out of it, and the way we got out of it is to say to ourselves, well, if the Trump administration is going to say that, there were so many different lines of attack at once. It's a hoax. It's not a hoax, but it's not sensitive. It's sensitive, but it's not top secret. Jeff Goldberg is a scumbag. That was one of their main arguments.
Actually, the word scumbag.
Yeah, that was one of their main arguments. Or sleazebag. Sleazebag? I want to be accurate. Sleazebag. Calling me names, obviously calling The Atlantic. Donald Trump has been running that play, The Atlantic, as a failing. He's been saying The Atlantic is a failing magazine for about 8 years now. We were half the size when he started. So sometimes I joke that he's like our circulation director in a kind of way. It's not, that's been a weird help. So if they hadn't done all those things, I wouldn't have had to decide to publish, but we were faced with this dilemma. I'm not going to be called a liar. I'm certainly not going to have my magazine be called a liar. And more to the point, it's a serious thing. You guys made a mistake. It's a serious mistake. It's a serious breach in national security. They had an opportunity to just accept that they made a mistake, tell us how they're going to fix the mistake, and then move on. But they instead went on this weird kind of attacking the messenger, which is part of the playbook. And so what we did was we started reaching out to all of the agencies. This is once Donald Trump said there was nothing serious in the material. We reached out to all the different agencies, CIA, DNI, NSC, and so on, and said, look, Trump says this, Tulsi Gabbard says that, but we want to know, just because we're belt and suspenders, right? Is there anything you actually think shouldn't be put out into the public eye? Because the last thing that we want to do is put American service people in harm's way. That's just other people in journalism have a debate about this kind of thing. No, it's a serious debate. I'm not gonna do that. That's not gonna happen. And so what happened, we got some feedback. Some people ignored us. We finally got a sort of anodyne statement from the White House. It's not secret, but don't publish it anyway, was the request, which didn't really hold a lot of water. The CIA actually did ask us to withhold a specific piece of information, which we did. They explained why, and it seemed like a good explanation. They essentially goaded us into publishing the full transcript, and so we did, because we didn't have a choice at that point. And so that was the decision. We put that out, was it yesterday, I guess? It was just yesterday.
Feels like a lot longer ago than that.
It feels like a little bit longer, but it was yesterday. And it's funny because you get to, when you're in journalism, we love talking in kind of highfalutin, idealistic terms about what we do. And this is an opportunity to actually say to ourselves, what is in the best interest of our readers, of the people of the United States? They should see the whole truth, and then they should make up their own minds about whether this is a serious breach of national security or not. Our goal is to, like all good journalists or people who are trying to be good journalists, to hold powerful people to account. And so if they're going to tell the American people that this isn't important and we feel it's important, we're going to let the people decide, and that's what we did.
But let me return to the attack on you, because this is something that we know from other times and other places. I mean, it's not just something that the Trump administration does. That attacking the messenger, attacking the journalist, attacking the institution of journalism, attacking the Atlantic, this is something that autocrats and dictators do in other countries in order to be able to create their own reality, right? I mean, they want to say, don't believe anybody except me. Ignore Jeff Goldberg. He's a scumbag and a loser and a sleazebag. Only listen to into what we are saying. Do you think that by publishing the texts, you injected that little dose of reality into the conversation?
I hope so. I mean, look, and Anne, as you all know, is one of the great experts in the world on authoritarian behavior. I mean, wrote the book on the Gulag, on the history of the Gulag, and has been writing about totalitarianism and authoritarianism ever since. So I'm not telling you certainly anything you don't know. The goal of people who are authoritarian-minded is to force compliance, right? They can only do what they want to do if no one fights them, if no one argues with them, if no one counters it. And so if you have a dose of reality that you can inject into the system, into the cognitive system of the United States, well, then you should do it, because they're counting on people not doing it. I mean, I've been saying this for a long time. I mean, saying this before Donald Trump was reelected. If there are 8 or 9, I think 9 or 10 additional Republican senators who would have voted for impeachment after the January 6th rebellion, or whatever you want to call it, uprising, Donald Trump would not have been allowed to run for president. But they enforced compliance, and they do that in the Republican Senate caucus, and they enforce compliance through intimidation, through threat, through fear.
So Mike Waltz calls you a loser on TV, implies that that you've somehow mysteriously made your phone number appear on his telephone. No, it was sucked in.
Using my brain waves.
That's right.
Yeah.
So how does that work in your brain? So you're accused of these very bad things, and you're meant to be intimidated, and you're meant to say, "You're right, Your Honor, we won't publish anything." Yeah.
Well, I mean, Mike Waltz can call me a loser if he wants, but at least I know how to text.
And did you break into his phone?
Can I just tell you something?
Yeah.
Did I break into his phone? So one of my kids in our family chat,
where you only use initials, right?
Yeah, our family chat, which is now, entirely encrypted in code. I mean, most of our family chat consists of, does anyone have the Hulu password? I mean, that's basically the family chat, right? In our family chat, one of my kids the day before last said, the most amazing thing about this story is that Daddy has learned how to take a screenshot. I don't really have those skills I think, this goes back to, what you're saying. You throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and you hope it sticks. So instead of, this is what I don't understand, and anybody who's in a leadership position in any organization knows this, it's when you make a mistake and you're called out on it and it's a mistake. You have choices. You can own the mistake. If you have to fall on your sword, you fall on your sword. If you get a second chance, great, you learn from it. You just deal with it. He did invite me into the Signal chat. and you could just say, wow, that was a doozy. And we're not going to do that again, and we're going to not use Signal and other private commercial apps to communicate war plans or attack plans, or we're going to, no, I mean, I'm being entirely serious. We have to be open to the idea that people in government, just like everybody else, make mistakes, and sometimes the mistakes have profound consequences. And the test is, how do you respond to the mistake? Do you just say, well, we made a mistake and we're going to do X, Y, and Z? By the way, we wouldn't even be talking about it today if they had done that. I mean, maybe we would be, but it would be ebbing, right? But the Waltz Hegseth tactic in this case was to say crazy things and push back in a way that and what I would say is it's literally one of those situations where before you start calling a person, an editor, a magazine names, you should really make sure that that person doesn't have the receipts, because if you have the receipts, you're forcing us, in all seriousness, you're forcing us to say, actually, we're not lying. Here's the truth.
Campfire season's back, and that means s'mores. But when you're at home treating yourself, take them over ice with Dunkin' S'mores Cold Brew Concentrate. And suddenly you're always treating yourself. The home with Dunkin' is where you want to be. Click or tap the banner to shop now.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
Yeah, but there's something else here, which is that I'll be more definitive. Any other administration in recent years, Republican or Democrat, in which something like this or some similar incident took place, would have, at the very least fired somebody, or would have acknowledged that this was an important breach, or would have made some concession, and would not have merely focused on making up names about you. And so the question is, what's different about these guys? What is it that they're doing that's... what is...
We only have 13 minutes
13
left.
minutes, yeah. 4 seconds.
What's different? I mean, I'm trying to repress my desire to make jokes about this whole thing, obviously. What's different is that the leader in this case, was taught from an early age, or learned either from his father or Roy Cohn, his first lawyer of note, a valuable lesson. You don't apologize, you don't explain, you double down. And by the way, it generally speaking works.
Well, this is what I'm going to ask.
Well, this is the thing, and we've talked about this. We're both, I think it's fair to say, admirers of John McCain, the late John McCain. And in 2015, I guess it was 15, the summer of 15, Donald Trump is being interviewed about John McCain, who he doesn't like. And he says, I don't like people, he was talking about POWs, I don't like people who are captured, I don't like people who are shot down. I'm watching that and I'm thinking, according to the ordinary rules of political physics, that's the end of his campaign, right? For any American politician to say that about John McCain or any POW or any honored veteran is absurd, right? Especially in he's trying to get the nomination of a party that is associated with patriotism and support for the troops, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then we watched in the coming days, he didn't apologize for it. He doubled down on it, and he just rode that wave. And so I realized then that I'm not understanding something crucial about politics in America, or about this party, or about what he's doing. He's discovered some kind of trick, right? Trick doesn't treat it seriously, right? He's discovered a pathway to success that no other American politician that we can think of has ever discovered, which is you take the criticism and you turn it into, you refashion it into a weapon. Remember when people said America first, oh, Donald Trump, you can't say that. That was Charles Lindbergh's theme. That was what the Nazis were saying in America in the 30s. And he goes, I think it sounds great.
Right.
And then everybody's like, okay. And then they moved on to the next kind of moment, and it's like, that's kind of a political, maybe it's a dark art, but it's a genius dark art.
There's something about it, to me, what he seems to have is, he does things that other people can't do. In other words, he keeps breaking taboos, and he keeps saying things, he has no self-control at all, so he can say...
Well, maybe it is self-control. Maybe he knows.
But something about it makes people admire it,
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to, I have to be careful, I have to be polite to people, and he doesn't have to.
Well, as I said before, you're the expert, especially in the European context, Eastern European and Soviet and then Russian context. Why do, it's a genuine question, why do people, so many people, why are they drawn to the autocratic figure? Why is democracy not as popular as maybe you would think it would? Or the idea of democratic self-restraint, why is that not popular?
I mean, so in almost every country on the planet where there is a harsh dictatorship, there are also people who want democracy.
Sure.
So, you know, I've been in all kinds of places in the world. As you know, I was recently in Sudan.
Yeah.
You can go into very far corners of countries where there has never really been democracy, where there's a civil war, and you will meet somebody who says, what we need here is democracy. So there's a way in which people who live in the harshest societies understand intuitively that it's not fair. You know, it's not fair that the judges are controlled by the leader. It's not fair that people have no influence over politics. It's not fair that people are treated unequally or that people don't have rights. So there is actually something intuitive about democracy as well as dictatorship. But what dictators usually do is they create, it goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago, they create an atmosphere of, it's a combination of fear and greed. In order for me to get ahead and keep my position, I need to play this role. Or they create a world in which it's very difficult for people don't have incentives to break out of it.
Right.
And that's what's changed. It feels to me in Washington is that there are now a lot of people who have incentives not to say things they know are true, or incentives, to attack Jeff Goldberg for something that they know is true.
Are you surprised by how easily it is to scare people?
I've been surprised by some people, but not overall, no. I mean, really, there's no, there's no such thing as an exceptional society where these rules don't matter.
Right.
I mean, I suppose the strange thing about the United States is that it's not like we're living in a world where, if you lose your job as national security advisor, you go to the gulag. What will happen? Well, maybe you'll
go to Fox.
You'll go to Fox. Or, you'll teach at the Kennedy School, or I don't know. You'll be at a think tank. So the pressure that's being put on people is pressure to do with careers and status. It's not there's no violence.
Yeah. And by the way, I should say, Mike Waltz, who says he doesn't know me, I have found to be an interesting guy. You've probably encountered him as well, and he is in the camp. I mean, one of the interesting things that's not being discussed as much is that in that long discourse, there are definitely sides there are definitely teams within the Trump administration. J.D. Vance is definitely more of a kind of a soft isolationist, and Mike Waltz is more of in the old kind of like conservative muscular interventionist kind of model, internationalist almost, and
but
you could see
patriot. He uses patriotic language.
And he uses patriotic language, and I'm sure he's not comfortable with our what would you call it, pivot to Russia. I'm sure he's not comfortable with that. But this is just as an aside. It's interesting how people like that. I mean, you and I both have a lot of experience in the past with Lindsey Graham, and I have him in my mind as kind of the ultimate shape-shifting political character, because when I knew Lindsey Graham well, it was when he was Sancho Panza to John McCain's Don Quixote, right? And he was like 100% lockstep with John McCain. And he knew that John McCain couldn't stand Donald Trump and everything that he stood for, both from a political perspective and from a character perspective. But now he's all in, and you've written about that. And so, I mean, that is maybe one of the great operative examples of, like, how does that, I mean, I guess the question is how does that happen?
Well, usually there are different paths. I mean, people tell themselves various stories. If I'm on the inside, I'll be influential. Or if I don't do this job, then somebody else will. Or, my mother-in-law is ill and my wife is worried about our mortgage and I can't afford to lose this job right now. I mean, there's a sort of range of excuses.
Right. And that's the legitimate fears. There are some legitimate fears.
If you're in a really repressive society, then if I don't do this, I'll go to jail. And that's the thing that we don't have here. And that's well, I was thinking about Mike Waltz. I mean, you maybe.
No, I'm not. Well, let's leave that aside for the moment.
Sorry.
No. But by the way, this is one of the things about this general moment in America. You have to be, if you want to stand for reality, you have, and there are people who don't want you to do that. You have to be prepared to suffer the consequences of that. You really do.
But it's also true that one of the things they're doing, and you see it with you, but you've seen it with law firms, you've seen it with universities, they're also looking at picking out individuals, one university, one law firm, one journalist, and intimidating them that way. I mean, clearly one of the answers, or one of the things that I hope happens in the next few months even, and let alone the next few years, is that people begin to work together. I mean, if all journalists, or all lawyers, or all universities are on the same page.
Right. But the problem, no, it's a good.
Then it's much harder to pick them off one by one.
It's a good point, but what we've seen from some reporting this week on the law firm issue, you had Paul Weiss, the big law firm, being attacked by the Trump administration. And according to some of the reporting, at least, officials from Paul Weiss went to other big firms and said, hey, would you stand with us? And what was going on was that these other firms were trying to raid Paul Weiss for their best lawyers and their clients. I mean, it was not solidarity forever.
No, and it's very short-sighted, because then down the road, they'll be next.
Yeah.
And it's I suppose they're not used to thinking along those lines.
Well, that's kind of the ultimate question, is what do people and this is not a partisan question, because there's
not at all.
There are plenty of Democrats and Republicans and everybody who are concerned about this, but we're not used to this.
No.
We're just not used to this. I mean, if we lived in Poland or Russia or across most of the world, actually, we would have experienced things like this. But what do people and institutions have to do to expand their thinking, or to not have a failure of imagination about what might be coming?
I mean, it helps to read The Atlantic.
Oh, it does.
It helps
Absolutely
to know
true.
history. It helps to know some American history. I mean, you can find incidents and reflections of like this in our own history, including right here in Louisiana. There was a governor of Louisiana who some of you might know his name, who
pushed the limits.
Who pushed the limits here, Huey Long. And so there's a tradition of it, and you can study the tradition and learn what people did before.
Right. But the very fact that America First is rooted, maybe Donald Trump didn't know where it came from, but it was rooted in a stretch of American history, means that we've been through times like this before.
That was The Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, talking with me at the New Orleans Book Festival. You can get more from your favorite Atlantic voices when you subscribe to The Atlantic. A subscription gives you access to all of our award-winning journalism, and you can listen to as many articles as you want online or in the Atlantic app. Your subscription helps fuel all of our journalism in the magazine, on the internet, and on our podcasts. So subscribe today at theatlantic.com/podsub. And thank you.
To preserve democracy, one has to believe in it. To believe in democracy, one has to understand it. Where it came from, how it works, what's true, what's not true, what others did before you, how it could be better, how to make a difference. I'm David Frum, a staff writer at The Atlantic. I'm starting a new show where each week I'll dig deep into the big questions people have about our politics and our society. I'll explain progress that the peoples of the democratic world have made together, and remind you that the American idea is worth defending. Listen to or watch The David Frum Show, wherever you get your podcasts.